and welcome to this week's Movie Math, where they love me not, played out with Hollywood's Valentine's Day fair. Yes, someone got their heart broken, although it's a toxic relationship. All right, so now at first it looked like the entire holiday frame would be a disaster when the review embargo for both movies lifted the day before release. Never a good sign, and it ended up being not good. This was my favorite description of it on Twitter. However, on Valentine's Day itself, audiences rallied around Bob Marley's One Love. It was a Valentine's Day miracle, with it turning into something of a date movie, it seems, and with broad appeal across the board. Interestingly, Bob Marley started out with black audiences as the lead demo, but as the weekend progressed, white audiences showed up, something they did not do for the new color purple. We'll talk about more about that movie in just a moment. But Bob Marley set a new record for the biggest weekday Valentine's Day debut, as in when Valentine's Day falls on a weekday, a movie that starts that day. So even with that really great debut, the industry was still sweating because they were worried it would be a repeat of The Color Purple, which shined very bright on Christmas Day, but then quickly faded at the box office and with awards season immediately after. Bob Marley's not an awards contender, but I'm just trying to underscore the reversal of fortune for the poor Color Purple. That was a great movie. I love that movie. But instead, Bob Marley is becoming one of the most successful recent music bios, on par with Elvis. That's not bad. And that actually was an awards contender. But Bob Marley should just take this money and run. And it's going to help a number of the people associated with this film, which we'll discuss a little bit later in this episode. Some very cool people associated with this movie. I'm excited. Bob Marley has almost matched the entire domestic haul of The Color Purple in just 6 days. So all the money that The Color Purple has grossed, and then Bob Marley did that basically in 6 days. So that's very exciting for this movie. But yeah, this is a super weekend. Stretching from it's a Hollywood scheduler's dream. It stretched from Valentine's Day on Wednesday and ran all the way through President's Day on Monday, when most schools and offices in the United States are closed. Most people have the day off. So that is a mega weekend. And Hollywood usually does a better job programming Valentine's Day and President's Day. They're usually combined into one, although they don't always stretch out for this long. So this was a real beauty. But alas, the strikes. And also, I have to say, if Sony's Madam Web had been a good movie, it would have been a good fit with the movies that have flourished in this window. But it's a really bad movie. In fact, Sony is already trying to shape the narrative into Madam Web is so bad, it's good. But that doesn't seem to be working, as you can see from the box office. Especially because these days, you can get a pretty good look at a movie for free with clips that are quickly posted on social media. Sony took down one in particular, a very popular one, about crazy line readings in the movie. They are crazy. And while, unfortunately though, Sony was too slow because it had 8.1 or around that million views before it was taken down. And just to keep in mind, often less than a million people go to see a movie opening weekend. That's just, or something around there. It's very small. So that's actually devastating that many people were watching the movie that way. Scenes from movies, post-credit scenes coming up on social media has become a real problem in Hollywood, and it's really something they're going to have to deal with. Although I have found and discovered that the studios often aren't that social media savvy, which is weird. They seem to hire someone to be the social media manager, and they kick them down into some office somewhere where nobody ever sees them, and they say good luck. Some companies have become very social media savvy, but I think occasionally, they'll work with a marketing campaign, like a marketing company, and something great will come out of that. But I still think that a lot of the people who work in publicity and development and release and just at the studio, they're not really plugged into social media. Because I think that's why they're a little slow sometimes on the uptake, which is interesting to me. Because we all know what's happening here. You think they would be just as invested as it is actually their product. All right, so anyway, maybe this "it's so bad it's good" narrative will help the movie down the line when it reaches Netflix. Remember, Sony has a sweet deal with Netflix because they don't have their own streaming service. And there, curious audiences, like with social media, can take a peek at the movie at no extra cost. But that's very far away. Will someone even still care about Madam Web by the time it gets to Netflix? That'll take about 3 months. At least Dakota Johnson, and of course there's piracy. All right, at least Dakota Johnson should be okay with her mischievous, instantly iconic press tour for the movie, where she admitted that she hasn't even seen the movie and maybe never will. Dakota, hilarious. She's like, my brain's just fine. She saved herself. I don't know how Sony's going to feel about that, but I'm sure. Well, she just switched agencies. And what made her switch? She switched a week after the Madam Web trailer came out. Fascinating. Now, while Madam Web can see the future, for most of us, it's hard to even know what we're going to do for dinner. Enter Factor, now owned by our friends at HelloFresh. Forget 30 minutes, these meals are ready in 2 minutes. Fresh, restaurant-quality food with no prepping, no cooking, no cleanup. And what's even better about Factor is the variety of meals that they offer. For instance, I choose keto meals because they work with the healthy diet plan I'm trying to stick to. See, usually with my dietary restrictions, I'm stuck eating boring plain food, but with Factor, I get genuine meals without cheating. Know what else is nice about Factor? It's so fast and easy that even after a long day of working, I can still enjoy my evening instead of having to wait to eat until 9 or 10 p.m. We've all been there. So if you're constantly on the go but tired of eating junk, then Factor is perfect for you. And now you can sign up for Factor with a sweet deal. Go over to factor75.com or click the link below and use code BTT50 to get 50% off your first Factor box and free wellness shots for life. 2 free wellness shots from 3 available flavors for every order while you're an active subscriber. So again, head to factor75.com or click the link below and use code BTT50 to get that amazing deal. And thanks to Factor for sponsoring this episode of Movie Math. Now, back to Madam Web's box office. You aren't off the hook, Madam Web. Madam Web's like, let's just keep going. No. Now, it couldn't even match the debuts of The Marvels or Morbius. Jared Leto's like, woo. Jared Leto's like, that was me. Although Morbius, I think, to a large part, I think Morbius and House of Gucci really did kill Jared Leto's career. All right, so, and We Crashed. He was so good in We Crashed. And I kind of liked Morbius. And I kind of liked him in House of Gucci. But most people did not. All right, so, and sure enough, just like The Marvels and Birds of Prey, the audience skewed male. Whether Hollywood likes it or not, that's who's primarily interested in comic book movies. Even 2017's Wonder Woman was a 50-50 split when it comes to gender. So bottom line, Hollywood is trying to make comic book movies aimed at women, yet women keep telling them that they are not interested. And all that Hollywood is doing as a result is shedding crucial male viewers. Now, you can get some ladies to go. Wonder Woman was a 50-50 split. But clearly, the male audience is the one that really cares and gets excited about these movies, and they are the foundation of a successful comic book movie. The ladies are gravy. You add that on top. All right, so clearly, the Venom movies are what's keeping Sony's Spider-Man-less dreams alive. I think they're still dreaming about it. And we'll see how Craven does later this year. There's a lot on the line with that movie, in particular for Aaron Taylor Johnson, because word, of course, is that they're interested in him to be the new Bond. But maybe not after that movie releases. Although, again, maybe it's the new Venom, right? I mean, maybe it is. I mean, people kind of like the trailer. People are telling me Aaron Taylor Johnson's hot, even though I don't see it. But even some of my close friends have said that they're catching the bug. So, that movie, and I have to say, I liked parts of that trailer. So it could be a new Venom. And then we'll never get out of this vicious cycle. What Sony really needs to do, though, in my opinion, also maybe, I would say Aaron Taylor Johnson could maybe get the Bond deal before Craven releases. Because again, I told you, a lot of times Hollywood producers and studios aren't really paying attention to what's happening in the real world. So maybe they're not paying attention to Sony's Spider-Verse, Spider-Verse imploding. They just see, ooh, Craven. But so maybe you can get them to sign the deal for Bond beforehand. But if Craven does well, his price tag would go up just get Bond to Aaron Taylor Johnson, whichever way you can. Don't play around with this if it's indeed on the table for you, which I find inexplicable. All right, but it wouldn't be the first time Hollywood did something really stupid. All right, so speaking of things that are stupid, why doesn't Sony make a deal with Toby or Andrew to be their non-MCU Spider-Man? Andrew's even into it. Let's go. By the way, where's our live-action Miles Morales movie? Well, someone asked Amy Pascal about it this past week, and she said not until they do at least 2 more Spider-Verse animated movies. Does that count the one that's coming up? I mean, I would not sit on a live-action Miles for too long. His time is now, with the animated movies and how popular he is in the video games. I mean, while the Spider-Verse movies are, of course, incredible, works of art. They make lots of money. They win the Oscar. I mean, I don't know if they're going to win this Oscar. I think they might have just won the Annie Award again. But I mean, they're good. They're very, very good. But box office-wise, they still don't make as much money as the Spider-Man movies and, let's say, the Black Panther movies. And I feel a Miles Morales movie could, combine that into one to be, just so much money. I would be making a live-action Miles Morales movie right now. What are you waiting for? This is ridiculous. I mean, with all due respect to the animated movies, which I love, and I'm so excited about the next one, but I feel that should be it, and he should move to live action after that. What do you think? Is Amy Pascal right to protect these animated Miles Morales movies, or let's go to live action? If anyone says, I'll be curious to see what you say. All right. Also, Sony, why do you keep making basically every possible Spider-Man spinoff movie you could make, except for the ones that people actually want? I told you, they're not paying attention. As I said, also, Johnson will back to Madam Web, Johnson will probably survive this and go back to making quirky indie films. People like casting her because of those crazy line readings. She's already set, in fact, I'm sure you saw this headline, for the next Celine Song movie. She's the writer-director behind Past Lives, very good movie, opposite Pedro Pascal and Chris Evans. You would think she was, in fact, good. But Chris Evans seems to be cursed outside of the MCU, so he might take that whole film down. I don't know why somebody has, again, why isn't someone told that to Celine Song, being like, Chris Evans is kind of cursed. Is there anybody else you'd like to put with Pedro Pascal and Dakota Johnson? All right. But I mean, I don't know. I think people will definitely probably watch that. I mean, how much money does the Celine Song movie really need to make? Although I would think at this point, Chris Evans might hurt its chances for awards as well. I'd get him out of there. And I love you, Chris Evans. But from a business perspective, get out of my movie. All right, director S.J. Clarkson, she's done, right? I mean, after this and the unreleasable Game of Thrones spinoff that she did, she'll be lucky if she can go back to directing streaming episodes here and there. I mean, again, I'd be like, I don't want to tell her to her face, but don't bring her in here. All right, but hey, you never know what's going to happen in Hollywood. You never know. Just hang on, Clarkson, if you can. Because look at Kingsley Ben-Adir. Wow, who'd ever thought this would have happened? Because he really embarrassed himself with Secret Invasion. Not only was the show awful, but he was awful on it. He couldn't seem to care less on camera or on the press tour, where he wasn't even funny like Dakota Johnson. He was just bored out of his freaking mind. But then he gets Barbie, where he was a scene stealer opposite Ryan Gosling. Do you know how hard it is to compete in the Barbie movie with Ryan Gosling? Yet he managed to pull focus. And now Bob Marley is a hit. He's back in it. Again, if I were a producer, I'd be like, maybe we should cast him. Also, thank goodness for Lashana Lynch, because she's had a rough time in Hollywood, despite doing phenomenal work and being very dialed in. But it's not gone well for her. She really needed this win. And wow, let's give some love to director Ronaldo Marcus Green. He directed the heck out of King Richard. Seriously, that was a very well-directed film, and he didn't get any attention for it. But now he's 2 for 2? Every studio should be looking at him to direct. You know what he could direct? The live-action Miles Morales movie, Amy Pascal. Come on. She even has a relationship with him because I believe King Richard was the Sony movie. This is ridiculous. I'm telling you, that's the guy. I think he'd be great to direct that. But seriously, I think he could direct anything. He knows how to deliver a crowd pleaser. He is a fantastic studio director. Let's show him the love. All right, as for the rest of the top 10, Argyle and Lisa Frankenstein insisted on staying theaters only for Valentine's Day, which kind of worked for Argyle, just a 24% drop this time, while Lisa Frankenstein unfortunately fell 45% in its second weekend and almost out of the top 10. It didn't start very high up to begin with. Argyle is still a huge flop, though, let's not be mistaken, and both these movies should get to digital sooner rather than later, while they still seem somewhat fresh. Anyone But You also enjoyed a little bit of a bump for Valentine's Day, releasing some additional footage. in theaters, but then it fell back down. So this movie is also ready to jump to digital. Migration and Wonka are already on digital, but they went up this weekend. That's incredible. And Wonka, it hit $600 million. It couldn't have happened to a better movie. I'm so happy. Just as Dune 2 is bearing down on the multiplex. 1-2 punch from Warner Brothers and Timothée Chalamet. Word of mouth for Dune 2 is already fire. I saw it last week. It's so good. So good. The movie is indeed epic, showing Timothée Chalamet's versatility as an actor. You might have felt you just saw that guy, but you have not. Totally different in the Dune movie. Also, it's very much Zendaya's film as well. And Javier Bardem and Austin Butler. Great cast. I can't talk about it too much. The embargo lifts on Wednesday, I think. Tuesday or Wednesday. I think Wednesday. Thank goodness Dune ended up being moved due to the actors' strike, because it would have been crazy to release Dune 2 and Wonka just about a month apart. Too close together with both having Timothée Chalamet. I think they would have cannibalized each other because, Wonka ended up becoming the Christmas movie. Now, as it is now, though, it is now just about 2 months apart, right? So not that much more time. But both movies are so freaking good. As I said, the 1-2 punch should really help not only Warner Brothers, but Timothée Chalamet's career. It's going to be good. Hollywood is now hopeful that Dune 2 could open maybe with $80 million, right? Because word of mouth from critics is so strong and people are hungry for a blockbuster. Yet while Dune is a hot ticket on premium screens and in the big cities, there are still plenty of tickets available on regular screens and outside of big cities. I've been checking because, if you want a ticket in New York City on a premium screen, good luck. But anywhere else, take your time. So I'm not quite sure which direction this movie's box office is going to break. I would say at this point anywhere from 60 to 80. And you know what? Warner Brothers should really be playing up the fact that you don't need to have seen the first Dune to enjoy the second Dune. I mean, I saw the first one and I liked it. But I don't really remember it that well. I didn't rewatch it to get ready for Dune because I was like, I don't need to see that much Dune. And so I just kind of went in slightly cold to Dune 2. And I had an amazing time. So you're fine. Just go watch Dune 2. That should be the slogan for the movie from Warner Brothers. Just go watch it. Do you want to be part of this party opening weekend or not? The next 3 episodes of what would you do? What would you do to convince people to see Dune 2 in theaters? Again, really, it's the first. I know a lot of people like the first film. Again, myself included. But the second film is so much better. Okay, I'll give you my comparison now. It's like Batman Begins to The Dark Knight. That's the glow up. Did you really have to see Batman Begins to enjoy The Dark Knight? No, you did not. All right, the next 3 episodes of The Chosen Season 4 dropped, and they were a little bit down from the debut of the season earlier in the month, but this is still mighty impressive for basically streaming episodes playing in theaters. I mean, there's the religious angle too, with churches really pushing their congregations to go to these events. But, still, it's very nice. This is very healthy. I would say other streaming services might be tempted to follow suit, but they're worried about churn. This is interesting. With most streaming services, content supports the service, not the other way around, which is kind of messed up, right? They're like, the most important thing here is that you just stay subscribed, not the shows themselves. And you're like, that's weird. And what the heck is Land of Bad, right? This is one of those direct-to-digital style movies that somehow found its way into theaters, starring Russell Crowe and 2 Hemsworth brothers, but the catch is neither one is Chris. I'll give you 2 Hemsworths. Sorry, they still don't equal the Chris. Who the heck is distributor of The Avenue? What the heck is that? Pre-pandemic, this movie never would have opened top 10, but it's a different world that we're living in these days. Did any of you see this in theaters? How was it? Was it worth seeing in theaters? I did see a story in the news, by the way, about Crowe finding out years later that he fractured both of his legs while filming Robin Hood and never realized it, just walked around on set filming in pain. And then years later, a doctor x-rayed him and said, "When did you break your legs?" That was a great story. And apparently it's because he was promoting this movie. And I read that whole story. And I had no idea he was promoting this new movie, Land of Bad. But it still made the top 10. That's incredible. All right, that's a funny Russell Crowe story, boy. I love that. All right, over on streaming, talk about brand. Over on streaming, starting with Nielsen for mid-January. On the overall chart, this is actually pretty healthy with the top 7 over 1 billion minutes apiece. Yet the big headline this week for Nielsen is that Echo not only fell off the overall chart, but couldn't even stay on the originals chart, where the bar is much lower. So that means that the Disney Plus binge experiment was one and done in 1 week. Whereas, let's say, like, for instance, a lot of Netflix shows, which also use the binge model, are still able to stay on these charts for weeks and weeks and weeks. Echo, though, it's worth noting, has similar problems to what we've been talking about just now with Madam Web, The Marvels, Birds of Prey, etc. So I think there might be something here for Disney Plus to consider. Although they're very happy with Percy Jackson's weekly performance, that's yet to make it onto the overall chart. And so I guess let's just see. As long as the content might serve the service for the services, but we care about the content. So as long as we're getting the content we like and more of it, all right, fine. And this is Us just hit Netflix and is hoping to be the new Suits. Right now, both are at the bottom of the overall chart. I mean, that's not bad, but I don't know if it's going to be able to be the new Suits. By the way, NBC is racing ahead with its Suits spinoff set in LA with none of the original cast who just showed up at the Golden Globes and basically look the same, although I'm sure they'll guest star. And how expensive could they be? None of them work. But instead, it will star scab Stephen Amell. Why, Hollywood? Why? Why? Again, not at all dialed in. I mean, anyone who spends any time, I mean, maybe people will watch it. Maybe. But, I mean, that's just incredible to me. Why reward a scab? All right, over on the originals chart, Reacher, a weekly release on Prime Video, is still doing incredibly well as it works its way through season 2. We'll see how Alan Ritchson's upcoming movie does this weekend. Well, Percy Jackson, as I said, still can't make the overall chart, but who cares? Peacock's Ted managed to stay on here for the second week, while Peacock has another hit with The Traitors. I know this will make some of you happy. Some of you have been tweeting me being like, get on The Traitors, Grace. This train's moving out of the station fast. And you're right. It's blowing up as the hot new reality show with its second season. This is just, by the way, when season 2 started. The other day, when its season 2 finale aired, I saw it trending #1 on Twitter. That's incredible. That's usually reserved only for like Bravo reality shows, Real Housewives, and Survivor. And speaking of never knowing what's next in Hollywood, suddenly Alan Cumming, bless his soul, is the new Jeff Probst, Phil Keegan, and Tim Gunn. Probably in some ways all rolled into one. That's, by the way, hosting reality shows is a sweet gig. Very sweet gig. Finally, does he get to keep that wardrobe? I mean, it's incredible. And I wonder who came up with the idea for him to have that wardrobe. I think that's great. Very, very smart. Finally, with movies, Lift is still huge in its second week on these charts. Kevin Hart delivers. While with Netflix, their deal with Warner Brothers has produced another hit, first Aquaman and now Tarzan. That's Sony and Warner Brothers now working with Netflix. And for its first full week on these charts on Apple TV, Killers of the Flower Moon did jump to #4 here on movies, but couldn't make the overall chart. Well, Kevin Hart did. Oh, poor Scorsese. Overall, I mean, I think he's like not, I mean, some of you feel if Scorsese just does anything, it should be instantly like lauded. And I'm like, I still think he needs to deliver. All right, so although I think Lily Gladstone is going to win Best Actress. All right, we'll see what happens with the SAG Awards this coming Saturday. We'll talk about them when we talk about this upcoming week. Over on Netflix's own charts for just last week, speaking of big studios, Universal's over here too. Their Despicable Me movies just hit Netflix, even Minions, and did incredibly well. Along with Netflix's own animated movie, that's doing still okay in its second week, and another one of Netflix's very popular true crime docs. With shows, while the numbers continue to only be good, this is now 3 weeks at #1 for Griselda. So that alone is a real revival for Sofia Vergara's career. When she's walking around pitching, she doesn't have to give the numbers. She just has to say 3 weeks at #1 on Netflix. And that's all she needs to say. But new series One Day, I think that guy's the lead. He was in the last season of White Lotus, but this did not connect with audiences. On iTunes, it's mostly the usual suspects here, although it's great to see The Iron Claw not just finally find an audience, but at #1. Great movie. Very sad movie, but great movie. Like American Fiction has found an audience here, that's also a good movie. I think Iron Claw is a little bit better, but I like both those films. But American Fiction could never get to #1. It's nice to see Iron Claw at #1. Hunger Games, what's that doing back up so high? Well, it's now available to rent. As for this coming weekend, we're in between the Valentine's Day, President's Day movies, and then Dune 2, right? So not an ideal release window. Still, 2 movies are going for it. Religious Skewing Ordinary Angels. That's the Alan Ritchson movie with Hilary Swank. Although she's the actual star, but I think Alan Ritchson, they should be playing him up more for this movie. As well as the new Demon Slayer movie out of Japan. We'll see which one is number one, or if maybe Bob Marley keeps it. Bob Marley is hot enough this weekend that it could stay number one. We'll see. That might be a very tight three-way race, which that'd be fine. It would be nice for all those movies. As for digital releases, Mean Girls actually ended up getting moved to this Tuesday, along with awards contender The Zone of Interest from the UK, although that movie is in both English and German. And with streaming movies, Netflix has Tyler Perry's Mea Culpa on Friday. But with series, this is where things get nuts. With Disney Plus and Netflix going head to head, with The Bad Batch Season 3 starting on Wednesday with 3 episodes, and all of Avatar The Last Airbender live action hitting Thursday. The review embargo for both these shows is when they drop, which is nuts to me because I think both shows are quite good. I've seen the first 8 episodes of The Bad Batch. Again, I can't review either of these shows until they drop, 3 a.m. on their respective days, Eastern Standard Time. But I can tell you The Bad Batch, very good, very, very strong. But you don't have, Bad Batch is a slow burn. You know, nothing amazing has happened in the first day. I mean, if you love the show, it's Bad Batch goodiness. But you can pace yourself however you want to watch it. Although they are giving you like a movie first week. And then Avatar: The Last Airbender, though, I've only watched the first 2 out of 8. I'll have finished it before it drops. I'm surprised how good it is. So I'm excited to talk to you about it. Also this week, Apple TV has new show Constellation starting Wednesday, and Paramount Plus has a new season of The Family Stone. You would think this would be below Sylvester Stallone, but he's made it clear he needs to get paid. Apparently he squandered all his money, which is why his wife almost divorced him. I wonder if they're talking about that on the reality show. I don't think so, but that would be very interesting. Then on Friday, Prime Video, she came back because he put her on this reality show. All right, they're trying to be the Kardashians, but it's not quite working. All right, then on Friday, but Paramount, they're the Paramount Plus version of the Kardashians. That is a perfect description of that show. All right, then on Friday, Prime Video has animated series, The Second Best Hospital in the Galaxy. How many quirky adult animated shows can the internet support? Maybe an infinite number, we'll see. Well, on Netflix, there's season 6 of Formula One Drive to Survive. I've never even heard of that show, and here it is on season 6. And I cover this stuff. All right, then on Saturday, February, did anyone watch Formula One? Although, Lewis Hamilton recently, what did he join Ferrari, right? That trended like a mofo. So I'm like, race car driving, or maybe it's the star, Lewis Hamilton. Might be all Lewis Hamilton. But, that seems, just like I'm seeing wrestling get bigger and bigger, and gaming getting bigger and bigger, video gaming. I think Formula One, some of you are like, this role is so big, Grace, what are you talking about? I'm talking about crossing over in the mainstream, where people like me are like, oh, hey, what's happening over there? That's big. That's when you really made it. All right, then on Saturday, February 24th, as I said, Netflix will be doing the SAG Awards, just like they did last year. So let's see if they can get a lot of attention. I think it's real interesting who they chose to put on the poster. All right, and that's this week's Movie Math. What are you watching? What do you plan to watch? And what sort of SpiderMan movies do you think Sony should be making? Are they right to wait on live-action Miles Morales? Share your thoughts down below. And whatever you might be thinking about with movies and streaming. Subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.